The Stroke of the Pen by Narelle Hancock of Shoalhaven Heads, 2535. Narrated by Janine Penfold. I have always been in awe of my grandfather's penmanship. His ability to write in copperplate, even for the most mundane tasks, always produced a result closer to a work of art than a letter or a shopping list. The ritual of writing was reminiscent of an exotic tea ceremony. Calm, measured, and without deviation. Letter writing always occurred on a Sunday afternoon after church and the traditional lamb roast lunch. Grandad would rise from the table, thank Grandma for the wonderful meal, and then wash his hands as scrupulously as a surgeon preparing to perform a life-saving operation. He would take the tiny key from the mantelpiece and walk with purpose to the roll-top desk in the study, carefully inserting the key into the equally tiny lock and rolling back the cover. Standing for a few seconds to ensure all was in order, he would then return the key to the mantelpiece before taking his seat in the high-backed leather chair. The interior of the desk was an assembly of drawers, shelves, and hidden niches, each holding a cache of writing necessities. Paper of various sizes, thickness and textures were neatly stacked on separate shelves, each representing the purpose or recipient for who it was intended. Pen nibs were kept in an embossed, silver-lidded box with divisions to separate each style to enable easy choice. Like the paper, each nib had a particular dedicated purpose. The ink pot with matching silver lid was always placed on the right-hand side, while the rocker ink blotter was always on the left. The centrepiece was the elegant silver pen stand. The ritual continued as Grandad selected the nib, which he carefully wiped with a small square of linen imbued with rubbing alcohol, to remove impurities from the surface of the nib before inserting it into the pen. He would then select the appropriate paper that would allow the pen a smooth transit over the page. Having completed all the necessary preparations and having collected his thoughts, he would begin writing. The pen appeared to dance across the page, heavier on the downstrokes, lighter on the upward. Every movement was choreographed to produce a perfect copperplate script, complete with flourishes and embellishments. I inherited none of my grandfather's penmanship. I was the last in the class to graduate from using pencil to pen, and things went downhill from there. My page was continually covered in blots and sometimes even holes from excess pressure. I managed to break nibs and cover my fingers in ink, which then smeared across the page. The hostility between myself and the teacher was palpable. The inability to use a pen was not the end of my deficiencies. I struggled to form letters. They seemed to have a mind of their own, whereas I imagined them to turn out as clear, even, and somewhat on the line. This was not the case. My letters A, B, D, E, and F were consistently back to front. And I refused to even try the letter S. Educators today would call it dyslexia. Back then, I was just called stupid. All these problems occurred at the easy learning to print stage, but then they introduced cursive writing. I was ambivalent in my relationship with this script, as although my writing was even more indecipherable, I enjoyed covering the page with loops and swirls. The teacher was unimpressed, and so I spent a lot of time outside the headmaster's office. I was now not only stupid, but oppositional. I saw it as a sort of graduation until I became bored with nothing to do but think about my behaviour. So I became a truant. I was collecting titles. High school provided some reprieve for myself and the teachers, who only had to suffer my presence for 40 minutes at a time. And being allowed to use a biro solved the problem of the ink blots. The highlight of my week were the art lessons, at which I excelled. I could finally achieve something, and the teacher actually liked me. On the downside were the maths lessons, where the teacher became exasperated with me writing numbers back to front. Even if I managed to get the correct answer, it was marked incorrect because that was not how numbers were written. I was often sent outside the classroom to count the tiles in the hallway. I knew the teacher had never counted them, so I never bothered with accuracy in this endeavour. Technology is a wonderful thing. Although I struggled with a typewriter, jamming keys and using copious amounts of whiteout, the letters were always the right way round. I loved it. And now that I could present work in a readable form, the teachers found that I was not stupid, but suffered from the newly discovered problem of dyslexia. Teachers in the staff rooms were able to discuss their success with this newfound knowledge, as I began earning top marks in all subjects, except for maths. A computer and keyboard opened a whole new world. I no longer needed whiteout, as my computer auto-corrected my spelling, or at least informed me if I was incorrect. I suddenly enjoyed writing and stories. Poems and even research papers flowed from my mind to the paper without that anxiety that had always haunted me. The choice of fonts was exhilarating, and I tried every one, including copperplate. Somehow, the computer-generated copperplate lacked the spontaneity and warmth of my grandfather's penmanship. So I have embarked on a new venture. I have bought myself a calligraphy set. So far, I have completed 7 pages of the letter A without success. Perhaps I should start with the letter O. The end.